Both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are complex characters who change drastically throughout the course of the play. In general, they are both very different people by nature, but their shared goals and desires unite them as a married couple. At the beginning of Macbeth, their relationship is incredibly strong considering the time period, but as their characters evolve under the weight of their crimes, we are able to see how their differences slowly drive them apart. The one great uniting factor for Macbeth and his wife is their all-consuming ambition. After hearing the witch's promise that he will be the Thane of Cawdor, and later King of Scotland, Macbeth receives a promotion to that very same title by the current king Duncan. Additionally, the king plans to visit their castle, which would have been a great honour. Because the first part of the prophecy has come true, Macbeth cannot help but fantasize about taking the crown as well, although he knows he will have to commit regicide in order to get it. He says, "My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not." His dormant ambitions have clearly been awakened, and he is so gripped by these thoughts that he immediately writes home to tell his wife, Lady Macbeth, about these events. She receives this letter in Act 1, Scene 5, where Macbeth refers to her as "my dearest partner of greatness." While today it would not be unusual to call your significant other a partner, in Shakespearean times women were legally the property of their husband, so to be treated with any measure of equality would have been quite a rare thing. Furthermore, Macbeth could have waited to tell her the good news in person, since he is on his way back to the castle anyhow, but the fact that he sends her this letter in advance shows how much he values her opinion and approval, and wants her to know that she will share in his success. The idea of this partnership is not lost on Lady Macbeth, and she is immediately determined to help him achieve his goal of becoming king. She says, "Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised." Although they share strong ambitions for power, they have very different ideas on how to go about getting it. Macbeth is initially very hesitant to translate his thoughts into actions, as he says, "If chance will have me king, why, chance may crown me without my stir." He is hoping that he will not have to bloody his hands or his conscience to get what he desires, and Lady Macbeth is well aware of his ethical dilemma. She sums up his character perfectly when she says, "Art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. What thou wouldst highly, that wouldst thou holily, wouldst not play false, and yet wouldst wrongly win." Macbeth wants to have something that is not rightfully his, but also wants to attain it in a way that would preserve his upright nature. Unlike her husband, Lady Macbeth has no intention of giving up on her ambitions due to a moral conflict, and almost immediately begins to plot the murder of King Duncan. The only thing standing in her way is Macbeth, who actually decides not to go through with the murder, and comes to her with the feeble statement, "We will proceed no further in this business." Because she knows his character so well, however, she is prepared to push him over his moral boundaries, as her manipulative powers are unmatched. She attacks his manhood, saying, "When you durst do it, then you were a man," and uses his love for her against him, asking, "Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time such I account thy love." This brutal and effective combination convinces Macbeth rather quickly to go through with the murder, which suggests that their differing perspectives on moral boundaries complement each other in a twisted way. Because women at the time were portrayed as being unable to kill, Lady Macbeth needs her husband to commit the murder. And since Macbeth cannot bring himself to make his desires a reality, he needs his wife to be the illness to his ambition, and the spur in his side driving him to action. After the murder of King Duncan, we can once again see the difference in their personalities by how they react to the horror of what they have just done. Macbeth openly displays his overwhelming remorse and fear when he says, "Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand?" While Lady Macbeth keeps her composure, responding, "A little water clears us of this deed." She seems to be almost devoid of guilt, and scolds Macbeth for his outburst of emotion, which shows that she is still very much in control as she covers up their involvement in the murder. However, when Macduff discovers the body, Macbeth suddenly strays from their plan and rashly slaughters the two guards whom they had framed for the murder. When he blames his reaction on his anger at seeing the king's body, Lady Macbeth faints, and it is unclear whether this is a genuine response to this unplanned violence, or a show to shift the attention from her husband. Either way, this marks a gradual shift of control in their relationship, as Lady Macbeth starts to become less relevant in Macbeth's decision-making. Once Macbeth is crowned king, he begins to keep to himself more, and to share less information with his wife. Lady Macbeth notices this change and asks him, "How now, my lord, why do you keep alone of sorriest fancies your companion's making?" While Macbeth uses soliloquies to express his inner dialogue on a regular basis, it is very rare that Lady Macbeth speaks to herself, but when she does, it exposes her increasingly fragile state. Naught's had, all's spent, where our desires got without content. It appears that her dreams of success and power are empty now that they are a reality, and she feels as though she is losing both her relationship and her peace of mind. She no longer has a role to play in planning Macbeth's actions, as unbeknownst to her, he has hired assassins to kill his friend Banquo. Even when she asks what's to be done, he does not include her in his scheme and responds, "Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed." When we look at the term dearest Chuck, next to his earlier words, my dearest partner of greatness, the former is almost condescending in comparison. Like most marriages at the time, he no longer seems to respect her opinion or feel the need to tell her about his intentions, and it is likely that Lady Macbeth realizes she is being excluded. If you're enjoying this video so far, hit the like button below, it really helps out the channel. At Macbeth's celebratory banquet, however, she represses her troubles and plays the role of the good hostess to her guests, but this proves difficult when Macbeth is startled by the ghost of Banquo. In contrast to his wife's behavior, he openly displays his terror despite her repeated attempts to silence him. She tries to manipulate him once again by questioning his masculinity, saying, "Are you a man?" But this time he is not as susceptible to her insults, replying, "Aye, and a bold one, that dare look on that which might appall the devil." He is no longer the less dominant character in their relationship, perhaps because Lady Macbeth had no knowledge of this murder. After an abrupt end to the banquet due to Macbeth's breakdown, she no longer scolds him and tries to blame his strange behavior on a lack of sleep. However, Macbeth continues to act alone as he meets with the witches and orders the slaughter of Macduff's family without the presence of Lady Macbeth. In fact, she is no longer mentioned until the final act of the play, which reveals just how irrelevant she has become to his life. When we compare their behavior at the end of the play to that of the first act, it is interesting to note how both characters seem to switch personality traits. In Act 5, Scene 1, Lady Macbeth seems to be in a similar state to Macbeth after the murder of King Duncan. Her repressed emotions, along with a deterioration of her relationship, trigger a mental breakdown, and it is revealed by a doctor and a lady-in-waiting that she has been sleepwalking, and hallucinates visions of blood on her hands that will not wash clean. From her anguished bursts of speech, it is apparent just how heavy the weight of her guilt is, as she feels responsible not only for the murder of King Duncan, but the following ones as well. She says, "The Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is she now?" This is a Lady Macbeth we have not seen before, as she is frightened and vulnerable and openly speaks what is on her mind. In comparison, Macbeth appears to be composed and in his element as the soldier once again, as he prepares to defend his castle against Malcolm's army. Much like his wife's earlier behavior, he taunts his men about their cowardice, saying, "The devil damn thee black, thou cream-faced loon," and "Go prick thy face and overread thy fear, thou lily-livered boy." He has over time become a cruel and bloody tyrant, and is almost unrecognizable to the man he once was. In Act 5, Scene 5, he comments on this change, saying, "I have almost forgot the taste of fears. I have supped full with horrors. Direness familiar to my slaughterous thoughts cannot once start me." It is unusual for us to see such a stoic Macbeth, and raises the question of why both of these characters have changed so drastically in this final act. A major reason for this could be the witch's prophecies. Macbeth feels a sense of immortality due to their deceptive words, and is no longer as paranoid and fearful about what he has done. His wife, however, is truly alone. She has no such promises to comfort her, and Macbeth is nowhere to be seen in her lowest moments. She has lost absolutely everything that matters: her innocence, her relationship, and her sanity. It is not surprising then to hear that she has taken her own life not long afterwards. Macbeth's response to her death is cold and emotionless. She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow. These remarks on the pointlessness of life highlight how empty his own life has become now that his intense desires and ambitions have burned out. All that he has left are the deceitful promises which brought him to this point, and he stubbornly clings on to these until he finally meets his death at the hands of Macduff. Both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have compelling but very different character arcs in this play. Their shared ambition is a uniting factor which brings them together, but in almost every other way they are not alike. Consequently, once Macbeth has the crown, their partnership seems to dissolve, and they gradually go their separate ways until they end up on opposite sides of the spectrum from where they started. Their eventual deaths are inevitable considering the heinous nature of their crime, but the breakdown of their marriage is yet another painful factor in this tragic story. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more content. See you next time!